Well, here we have the Charlie Weaver battery-powered bartender from Rosko Toys, 1962. Charlie Weaver bartender. This is probably one of the most produced, maybe overproduced toys ever. I mean, everybody seems like had one of these things. They made billions of these things. Well, not that many, but you get the idea. Cliff Arquette, Patricia and David Arquette's grandfather, was an entertainer back in the day, and he created the Charlie Weaver character for the Jack Paar show. And of course, Charlie Weaver was a regular on the Hollywood Squares game show. But anyway, 1962, they created this battery-powered bartender, smoker, drinker toy that was very, very popular. There were two versions of the box, I'll tell you that. This is probably the most common. There was another one that I call the blue-eyed box, where the graphic is slightly differently drawn, and Charlie is looking straight at you with two really dark blue eyes. And some even say Roy Rogers Enterprises at the bottom of the box, which would tell me that maybe Roy Rogers Enterprises, he got involved in the licensing at some point, it sounds like. There were also a couple of different bars, for example. There was a series that came out with a real dark colored wood grain with blue stools instead of red. Also, there's a couple out there that have a pink heart instead of the common cream-colored or yellow heart, where Elsie Crack was here. Yeah, some of them are pink. I had a couple of the pink ones. I've not had one of the bartenders with the blue stools version, but they're out there. I've seen them. There's also some other variances. I have two Charlies. Look at that. They're reproducing right before our eyes. Just to show you the differences, slight differences in aesthetics. The stance is even a little bit different in these two. These were probably handmade in a factory or in factories back in the day. Probably hand assembled. But what I find interesting is the facial features are painted. They appear to be hand painted. Look at the eyelashes and eyebrows. They vary. From every Charlie I've ever had, they're all different. Someone's job was to just do eyelashes or eyes or both or whatever, but also many of these, see the glasses where they meet the head? So many of these, for whatever reason, they turn green. These are not turning green yet. Anyway, let's look at the functionality of these in comparison. This Charlie thinks he's on Zoom. He's frozen. He's freezing. Like on a Zoom call. Well, I think we can safely say they both have high blood pressure. And I don't see any evidence of smoking. Usually they would be smoking out of the ears as they're puckering or drinking their drink. And both of these seem to have stopped smoking. Hey, they stopped smoking. From 1962, the Rosko Toys Charlie Weaver Bartender.